It was about 20 years ago. As dusk settled and darkness crept in, the glass door of a quiet car dealership creaked open. Min-jun, a veteran salesman with 20 years of experience, was leaning back in his chair, exhausted. Hearing the door, he looked up to see a middle-aged man walking in with a worn smile. The man's face was kind and approachable. His gentle smile and soft eyes felt like those of a longtime neighbor, and the worn leather bag in his hand carried the marks of time. Min-jun instantly felt at ease. A customer like this at this hour? With a professional smile, he stood up to greet him. The man spoke in a warm, steady voice. "I'm here to look for a car for my nephew. Please find him a good one." His tone was polite, carrying the tenderness of a caring uncle. He wanted a large sedan and handed over a stack of documents. Min-jun glanced at the man's face as he took the papers. Wrinkles around his eyes, formed by his smile, exuded trustworthiness, and his every gesture was relaxed and confident. The documents were flawless, almost too flawless. The nephew's name, ID number, and credit score were all perfectly in order. For someone in their mid to late 20s, the credit rating was exceptionally high, with not a single record of delinquency. A question flickered in Min-jun's mind. At this age, buying such an expensive car? Who is this nephew? But the man's warm smile and sincere tone melted his doubts. This guy's trustworthy, Min-jun thought. Following his salesman instincts, he pulled out the contract. Back then, as long as the paperwork was perfect, a bit of flexibility was allowed. With a smile, he said, "Let's get this started." As his pen scratched across the paper, the man nodded and said, "Thank you, Min-jun. My nephew will love this." His voice was as comforting as a warm cup of tea. But Min-jun had no idea. Behind that warm smile lurked a cold shadow. This single contract would mark the beginning of a dark storm that would upend his life. Then, strange things began to happen. Every month, 2 identical large sedans were sold. The names on the contracts were always different, but the person visiting the dealership was always that same middle-aged man. He always appeared with the same comforting smile. His coat never changed, regardless of the season, and his leather bag was always placed in the same spot. "Another car for my nephew, Min-jun. I'm counting on you again." His tone remained kind, and Min-jun, drawn to that smile, proceeded with the contracts. The documents were always impeccable. Credit scores, income statements, everything as pristine as if printed by a machine. But Min-jun never once saw the faces of the so-called nephews listed as buyers. At first, he was reassured by the man's kindness. He told himself to focus on the sales numbers. But as 1 month turned into 2, a dark shadow began to creep into his heart. The same car model, the same documents, the same man. It was too strange to be a coincidence. At night, Min-jun couldn't sleep. In the darkness of his room, his mind was flooded with endless questions. Who are these people? Why don't the nephews ever show up? Why does this man keep buying the same cars? His heart pounded every time the dealership door opened, dreading the moment that man would walk in with that same warm smile and another stack of documents. But the allure of sales swallowed his unease. He filled out the contracts, reassuring himself There's no risk. The paperwork is perfect. Just focus on the numbers. One day, he examined the man's documents closely again. Everything was perfect, but an unusual situation stirred a flicker of unease in his chest. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Min-jun cautiously asked the man one day, "What exactly do you do for a living?" The man smiled warmly and replied, "I'd like to invite you to my home. Let's talk there." Min-jun felt drawn to the invitation. The man's kind demeanor dulled his suspicions. They arranged a meeting, and Min-jun visited his home. It was an ordinary two-story house, with the creak of old wooden stairs echoing under his steps. The living room was lit with warm lighting, and an old leather sofa gave off a cozy vibe. The man handed Min-jun a cup of warm tea and began his story. He was a self-made businessman running a brick factory. Having grown up in an orphanage, he had been gifting cars to children from similar backgrounds to help them settle into society. His eyes were warm, and his voice carried genuine sincerity. "I grew up struggling, but someone has to reach out to those kids," he said. His words struck a chord in Min-jun's heart, bringing tears to his eyes. Min-jun felt ashamed of his petty suspicions. This man is truly good, he thought. He clasped the man's hand tightly and said, "You're incredible. I respect you." The man smiled and nodded in return. In that moment, Min-jun's unease seemed to melt away. But even in that touching moment, a faint flicker of unease stirred deep within him. The man's smile was warm, but his eyes held a deep, unreadable shadow. As Min-jun left the house, he glanced back. A faint shadow seemed to move behind the second-floor window. He shook his head, dismissing it. "I'm just being paranoid." He didn't yet know the true nature hidden behind that smile. One day, the businessman, whom Min-jun had grown accustomed to seeing due to frequent car purchases, proposed that Min-jun take over his brick factory. "I'm planning to focus on overseas business and want to hand it over to someone who can continue supporting the orphanage kids." His words shone like a beacon of hope for Min-jun. He believed this opportunity could change his life. Combining his years of sales experience with the businessman's noble intentions, he was certain he could achieve great success with the factory. Time passed, and Min-jun happened to visit a shaman who had once been a client. In Korean culture, it's common to consult shamans for guidance before major decisions. The moment the shaman saw Min-jun, her face hardened. "There's a strange smell around you, a bad omen." Her voice trembled. She grabbed his hand and spoke firmly. "Don't do anything. Don't hurt others. And don't be greedy. Accept losses if you must. Your fate is wavering." A chill ran through Min-jun's body. Her eyes were filled with conviction. Her trembling hands and stern expression pierced his heart. What's wrong?" he asked, his voice shaking. But she shook her head and said, "Just listen to me. You're in danger if you don't." That night, Min-jun couldn't sleep. The shaman's warning echoed endlessly in his mind. Staring at the ceiling in his dark room, he thought, "My fate is wavering. What does that mean?" His heart pounded with an inexplicable fear. The sound of the wind outside sounded like a whisper. He pulled the blanket closer, curling up, but the fear wouldn't leave. It was as if an invisible hand was tightening around his throat, suffocating him. One day, after hearing about Min-jun's plans to take over the factory, the shaman insisted on accompanying him to the brick factory. As they approached, her face grew pale. Her eyes trembled with fear. Suddenly, she screamed and collapsed to the ground. "This place, it's a gate to hell." She pointed at the factory with a shaking hand, crying out, "The spirits of the unjustly dead are trapped here." Their screams fill this place. Min-jun froze at her agitated state. The smoke rising from the factory's chimney seemed to writhe like the screams of spirits. The rusted iron gate creaked as if the doors to hell were about to open. The air was thick with a cold, eerie presence. Min-jun's heart pounded as if it would burst. His body screamed instinctively, "Get out of here!" But his feet felt bound by an invisible force, unable to move. The cold wind swirling around the factory brushed against his skin. Whispering, "Run, run," he stared at the chimney. The smoke seemed to form fleeting, screaming faces. Trembling, he helped the shaman to her feet. "Let's go. This place is too strange." But she shook her head and said, "You still don't understand. This place, neither the underworld nor hell is like this." Min-jun's body went cold. The factory was no longer just a factory. It was a living nightmare, hiding unspeakable secrets. Min-jun had been reviewing the paperwork for the factory acquisition, dreaming of a prosperous future. His heart was filled with hope. But that hope was soon shattered by a cruel betrayal. A call came from the financing company. "We're unable to collect payments on the sold vehicles." Min-jun's mind went blank. The cars had been sold off across the country within a month, and the installment payments had been consistently delinquent. It was unmistakably a straw buyer loan scam. Min-jun couldn't believe it. The businessman he admired, with his warm smile and kind stories, was it all a lie? The shaman's warning rang in his head. "Your fate is wavering." His heart froze with betrayal and fear. He set down the phone with trembling hands. His vision blurred. A sense of despair, as if the world was crumbling, overwhelmed him. That warm smile and kind tone now felt like a cold, sinister mask. A few days later, a police investigation turned Min-jun's world upside down. The nephews listed as car buyers were all untraceable, their whereabouts unknown. The businessman's identity was forged. His face didn't match that of the real factory owner. Min-jun went to the man's house, but it was a wreck. Torn documents, overturned furniture, and an eerie emptiness that sent chills down his spine. He wandered through the house, searching for clues, but found nothing. Only the faint swaying of a curtain on the second floor caught his eye. A shiver ran through him. It felt as if someone was watching him from behind that curtain. He fled the house, his steps heavy, his heart pounding with an unnameable fear. Something drove him back to the brick factory. His instincts screamed that the truth lay there, but on the mutually exclusive path. A crushing sense of dread weighed him down, as if a great darkness was waiting to swallow him whole. He recalled the businessman's warm smile, now a haunting, sinister mask in his mind. At the factory, Min-jun recalled the shaman's warning. The spirits of the unjustly dead are trapped in the bricks, crying out. With trembling hands, he touched a brick. Then his eyes fell on the shape of the kiln used to fire the bricks, a chilling shape, just large enough for a person to fit inside. A jolt of terror shot through him. Steadying his breath, he called the police. Could you tell if there were human bones in the bricks through chemical analysis? The police immediately collected samples of the bricks and factory dust for analysis. Days later, the results crushed Min-jun's every hope. The bricks contained the remains of multiple human bones. His body went cold. The factory transformed before his eyes into a gate to hell. The smoke from the chimney looked like the screams of souls, and the creaking iron gate tore at his heart. He collapsed to the ground. Faint cries seemed to echo in his ears. The businessman's warm smile had morphed into the grin of a devil, burrowing into his mind. The police later arrested the businessman, but his true identity was even more shocking. He was a former orphanage worker, expelled for embezzling funds, yet trusted by the children. He had made the original factory owner disappear and taken his place, denying all charges. A surgical room found on the second floor of his house exuded an eerie aura, but no clear evidence was found. In the end, he received only a 3-year sentence due to insufficient evidence. The media called him a masterful con artist, but Min-jun knew better. He wasn't just a con artist, he was a psychopath. His warm smile and kind words were a perfect mask to hide his cruel nature. After his release, he vanished without a trace. Some said he fled overseas. Others whispered he was plotting anew in some dark corner. Min-jun was consumed by the fear that the man's shadow would haunt him forever. Min-jun's life could never return to what it was. Night after night, he was tormented by nightmares of piling bricks. The sight of a brick building on the street made him gag. To him, every brick seemed stained red with blood, and he could almost hear the screams of souls trapped within. He could no longer look people in the eye. The guilt of possibly being part of that horrific scheme and the fear that he might have been the next target crushed him. He quit his job as a car salesman and avoided contact with others, but the fear followed him like a shadow. He would suddenly recall the businessman's war smile, now a chilling blade piercing his soul. This is no mere ghost story. Far scarier than spirits is the cruelty of humanity. Somewhere, even now, another brick factory may be operating in the shadows. Keep your eyes open. The person you trust might be wearing a mask. The most terrifying thing in this world is the horror hiding right beside us. And at this very moment, somewhere out there, another Min-jun might be stepping into that darkness.